for your research endeavors. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from our esteemed speaker, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan ma'am, Associate Professor and Head Department of English from Queen Mary's College, in the topic Method in Madness, the makings of path-breaking research. With this extensive knowledge and experience in research methodology, ma'am will provide us with key insights and practical guidance that will undoubtedly enhance our understanding and application of effective research practices. Thank you for being here, ma'am, and let us make the most of today's session. And I welcome Mrs. Nadia, ma'am, to introduce today's research person to the forum. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of our international virtual workshop on excellence in research methodology. We are thrilled to have you with us as we delve deeper into the art and science of effective research practices. Today, we are honored to welcome Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of English at Queen Mary's College. Dr. Srinivasan will be presenting on the topic Method in Madness, the makings of path-breaking research. Her insights and expertise promise to provide us with valuable perspectives on what drives innovative research. Thank you for your active participation and engagement throughout this workshop. Let's continue to learn, collaborate, and elevate our research. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nadia. Good evening, everyone. And I don't think this is the first time I'm on this platform.
1 minute, ma'am. I have been done the welcome note alone, ma'am. We'll call another colleague of mine to introduce yourself to the forum, ma'am.
Now I call upon
Blessy.
Dr. Agalya VT Raj to welcome ma'am.
Thank you, Vilasini. Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan is an Associate Professor and Head of the Department of English at Queen Mary's College, Chennai, India. Her doctoral research focused on the life writings of Australian Aboriginal, Indian Dalit, and Adivasi women with an emphasis on their empowerment. Her work earned her the prestigious Endeavour Award in 2006, presented by the Government of Australia, where she had the opportunity to be a visiting scholar at the University of New South Wales, UNSW, Sydney. In 2008, she received the Australia-India Council Fellowship, further enhancing her academic presence on an international stage with research publications in esteemed international journals. In 2014, Dr. Srinivasan organized an international conference on multiculturalism and the social fabric in Australia, America, and India, held at Queen Mary's College, sponsored by the Australian Consulate and supported by USIS Chennai. The event gathered scholars from across the globe. Selected papers from the conference were later published in 2018. Beyond her role as an educator, she is the founder of In Tandem, a research forum dedicated to sharpening the research skills of postgraduate students and scholars. In addition to her contribution to literature and research, she's deeply involved in shaping educational policy. She played a significant role in drafting the state plan of Rashtriya Ucha Shiksha Abhiyan in 2014 and has been actively involved with Tamil Nadu State Council for Higher Education. Her work includes leading projects like the Bridge Course for Government Arts and Science College, contributing to the state education policy and coordinating the Non-Mudalvan program from 2001 to 2023. A published poet, her creative works have appeared in Australian anthologies such as Of Indian Origin in 2018 and Poetry Without Borders 2007. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Blessy. Thank you, Nadia. And I thank all the organizers and office bearers and officials and heads related to the Department of Science and Humanities May I start, Nadia? May I
Yes, ma'am.
start?
You can start, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
sharing.
ma'am. You can start. Yes.
Um, so before I actually share my PPT, I would like to play a song for you. And I think some of you might be intrigued by the title of today's presentation, Method in Madness. Somehow method and madness seem like antonyms. Okay, they seem like they are poles apart. But today in my presentation, I would like to make a case for having both method and having that element of madness. And by, I'll let you know what I mean by madness in the research work that we do. And it's only this kind of creative tension between method and madness, that kind of tightrope walk which we made between method and madness, and that equilibrium that we achieve between method and madness, that is going to make our work significant, if not path breaking. We don't have to always have path breaking research, but even if it does not um, impinge on the social scene as something revolutionary, your work and my work done meaningfully can mean something to somebody, right? Uh, Even one individual or a couple of individuals who learn something from your research, that itself is a great achievement if the work done is done meaningfully, soulfully. And I'd like to share a song that I came across. One second. Someone has to mute. Yeah. Yeah. Can you see the screen?
78 এরকম
So that song actually talks a lot about innovators, about Ford, about Hershey, about Whitney, who invented the cotton gin, and a whole lot of inventors and the people who envisioned that man could fly in an aeroplane. Everyone who attempted something new, something different, was laughed at. And this idea of madness and method, uh, it's a kind of course, I have got that expression from Hamlet, scene 2, where Hamlet actually feigns madness, and uh, the King Claudius and Queen Gertrude are eh, very anxious about uh, Hamlet's anxiety, Hamlet's madness. Now, we know that Hamlet was feigning madness, and this madness was a strategy. And the madness could not be, could also be seen as anguish, deep sorrow. Definitely, he was unhinged by grief at the loss of his father, unhinged about his obsession with Ophelia. So being unhinged could actually unleash some things, and uh, it could also mean that you can think out of the box, think differently. So Hamlet's madness, uh, in this context, when we are reflecting on research and innovation and doing something different, uh, is a metaphor for innovation. It's a metaphor for strategy, because Hamlet devises a strategy, the play within the play, where he invites a group of wandering players to play, to enact a play which closely resembles the actual murder of his own father. And he wants to watch the reaction of his mother and his uncle Claudius to establish for himself their guilt, right? So there is, if we take take ideas actually from the story of Hamlet, I won't say it's a framework. If we draw upon some of the ideas in Hamlet, we see that here there's a man who has an obsession. He has a mania. He is uh, his behavior is erratic, and but he has devised a strategy to arrive at the truth. He's seeking truth. So any so research is basically about a quest, searching for something. So as I said, this the idea of madness is just to um, foreground, just to emphasize that when one gets into when one is involved in research, one is compelled to do something. One is doing it because he's compelled to do it for uh, with a quest in mind. Could be a philosophical quest, could be action research, where you want to, especially when in English language teaching, we have action research. We would like to study the impact of the importance of listening, or the importance of the passive skills like listening and reading, on the active skills like writing or speaking. There might be some research question. I do remember that at one point I was contemplating studying how deaf children are able to acquire language, because they are deprived of listening. Okay, so when they are deprived of listening, how do they get spelling right? If spelling is phonetically, that it is phonic. If there are there's connection between articulation and writing, spelling, some connection, not always, then how do deaf students acquire language? And if you study this acquisition of language through people who are hearing impaired, then that may throw light on whether listening is so fundamental or crucial to language acquisition. Is listening all that crucial or fundamental to language acquisition? And what does the research into language acquisition by the hearing impaired show us about this? So there's always a hypothesis, right? So when we have a research problem and we have a hypothesis, and so your hypothesis is based on uh, assumptions in, or some things that you surmise, and those are mainly based on observations. So there is the likelihood of the thesis lining up with the hypothesis, that what you set out to prove might actually be proved by what you have, by the action research that you have done. But when you get into research, sometimes your thesis may not align with the hypothesis. There may be some findings that are different, or something that you didn't expect. So I can give you an example from my research area, which is the life writings. The writers of their autobiographies, when I interviewed them and I asked them if writing their book helped them to gain a voice, a number of them agreed. But there was one subject for my research, and when I interviewed her, she said that the text that was published is not her voice, though. So it came out in translation, and even the original in Malayalam was recorded. Definitely, someone recorded. There was an amanuensis. There were editors, and there were people who recorded her story. But there were there were distortions. All right, and what came into print was not her voice. So my assumption that the life story in print is an evidence of that person having gained a voice, of that person's story coming into print because that person gained some visibility through activism, through a path of life that she charted out for herself. Well, that got proved in 3 out of 4 cases, but it didn't get proved in the 4th case. So this is what I'm emphasizing this to say, that the thesis may not align 100% with your hypothesis. And I should have said this, in fact, earlier when I set out, that research is not something that we do to get a PhD, right? Research is required in many spheres of life. Journalists have to do research, right? And administrators have to do research. So if administrators are coming out with a policy, they have to do a lot of research, because it involves people, it involves money, and it involves public opinion, it involves lives, right? So a lot of research goes into public administration, research goes into business, market surveys, survey of the consumer behavior. And so before something is launched, after something is launched, and even a simple visit to your supermarket and how you select whatever you see on the shelf is based on you wanting to make an informed choice, though it actually may not add up to research. You look at, when you take a product off the shelf, you look at what um, the what constitutes that product, what are the ingredients, if it's a food product, or the date of expiry, whether you could be allergic to something in that. So when we in day-to-day life itself, we make an informed choice about what we buy, what we use as consumers. And in in a wider and larger frame of reference in society, there are people who are in seats of power who have to do a lot of research before they arrive at any decision or policy. So research is definitely a life skill, and research has there are different kinds of uh, orientation to research. So there may be people who want to innovate, who want to create something new, uh, a new way of teaching English, um, or new way of reading a text, something new, innovative, something different. And sometimes it might be um, trying to find make sense of this chaotic thing called life, right? So people are not able to understand so many things about life, about failed relationships, about um, certain types of disease like cancer. So why is there so much research into cancer? Why is so anything that causes loss of life, loss of loved ones? So people go into something that affects others. So when people are affected by something, they spend a lot of time researching into that to with the hope that they may be able to save someone else the pain. So there is some quest, some personal thing is involved, personal element is involved. And if so I'm just listing out the reasons for research. So your reason for research may be one of these. Your reason for research might be a quest for some philosophical quest. It may be a solution to a problem in science, in disease, in language learning. And whatever we find and should be useful to someone, should be refreshing, should be new, different. We may not always arrive at something, a discovery, okay? And it may not be always be path breaking, as I mentioned it. But we in our each of us in our own way can explore uncharted territory. So as I told you earlier, that research is we need to keep up this preserve. We need not have a negative opinion about obsessions or different ways of thinking. And in this context, I would like to juxtapose madness and method, because method is to many would be restricting. Method would mean uh, you know being systematic, which is good. Method would mean the way you do something. So always the input determines the output. And so if you are looking at uh, a, if a text through an eco-critical lens, then the discourse, you are contributing to the discourse on eco-criticism. And if you look at a text through a feminist lens, and if that text has both uh, environment concerns as well as something to do with feminism and women's contribution to the environment, you will look at it through the eco-feminist lens. Uh, and why do we use theory? Because we think theory is a lens. It helps us to see things, or it might be like a magnifying glass, that kind of lens. So it amplifies, it magnifies the information that is there. And it when we a theory is also a path, all right? It is so when the text is, as we say, the text is open, the text is traversal, the text is unlimited, and the text exists in the world as beyond the book, right? Roland Barthes says that the book on the shelf is the work, but the text is intertextual. So the text exists in the world, and the printed text is just a physical manifestation, a small uh, physical indication of the text that actually is traversal and exists in the world. So now when you choose a particular theory and you take a certain route, a certain path, and you are able to carve a path. And whoever reads your work, okay, you are taking them with you down that path of learning or discovery. Now, as I said, I do not want to prescribe that you should have a research problem. In fact, I would state that you do research if you have a research problem. Otherwise, you don't do research at all, right? So if you have a research problem, do research. I'd like to share a small poem, a little rhyme that we did when we were probably in nursery. And all research should look at these questions: who, where, what, why, when, and how.
Ma'am, we can't hear the audio.
Ma'am, the audio is not clear.
Do you want me to you said it's not clear? Hello?
No, ma'am, we cannot hear the video.
You cannot hear the video, is it? Okay, I'll just read the poem for you then. Yeah, I'll just read the poem to you. So I think someone has to be muted. Okay, the poem is by Rudyard Kipling. It says, I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. I send them over land and sea. I send them east and west. But after they have worked for me, I give them all a rest. I let them rest from 9 till 5, for I am busy then, as well as breakfast, lunch, and tea, for they are hungry men. But different folk have different views. I know a person small, she keeps 10 million serving men who get no rest at all. She sends him abroad on her own affairs from the second she opens her eyes. 1 million house, 2 million wares, and 7 million whys. So this poem, is about the child and the child's curiosity. The child always asking who, where, what, why. And this is actually the spirit that we have to keep alive in ourselves, even as adults. And the poem says that, as an adult, these 6 6 honest working men, who, where, what, why, when, and how. He gives these men rest. All right. Uh, he has his, time for nap and time for food. And apart from all these the time that he has saved for his creature comforts, apart from that, he keeps time for the who, where, what, why. So this is a depiction of our adult lives, where we don't have much time for intellectual curiosity. We become mechanical, We go through the motions of life. We run to college, run to work. We have our checklist of things to be done, things, files to get off our table, and time for deep thinking on questions of life, time for reflection, time for that philosophical quest. We minimize that time. But children, for them, the whole day, from that moment they open their eyes, it is who, what, why, tell me how, why, how, why, how. So that child in you and me, we have to keep that child alive, the child who asks these questions. We have to keep these 6 honest working men serving us all the time, and to whether to keep the madness part of it, feed the madness in us, feed that quest, the desire, the fire in the belly, keep feeding that fire and asking more questions and trying to find more answers. And all the questions that we ask and all the answers that we get are going to make life exciting for us and those around us, our colleagues, our friends, our community of research scholars. But otherwise, if we don't keep these, 6 men, honest working men, if we don't keep them working, we would end up being staid, and we might be sane as opposed to mad, and very sane, very practical, very pragmatic, doing things in a systematic way. And very often, method and methodology also takes away from innovation, creativity. Because when scholars feel that they need to locate their study within some theory, immediately the first question that scholars ask, which theory should I use, madam? Which theoretical framework? So people who are not very who are not excited about research, but who would probably be more interested in being scholarly and having what they say scholarship, having, getting a lot of knowledge, acquiring a lot of knowledge in that field. They have more of an obsession or preoccupation with method. Because why is this interest in method there? Because we are expected to know about the research that has gone into the field before we entered into that field. So let us always be aware that the review of literature, knowing theories, and being aware of the theory and criticism on that particular text is required more for us to be aware of what has already gone into that field of expertise or that area of knowledge. And we are often made to think that we have to transcend all that has been said and done in that particular field of knowledge. We don't have to transcend. You might remember Robert Frost's poem, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less taken," right? So when there's very often when you choose a field like eco-criticism or post-colonialism, and it would all your compiling your compilation of information, and all the when you collate information, it might all amount to scholarship. It might amount to scholarship, knowing everything that has to be known on the subject, and you are still on the beaten path. But if you stand at that place where the poet persona stood in Robert Frost's poem, the road less traveled, you will be, if you are governed by madness rather than method, what will you choose? You will choose the road less traveled. So that is also what is going to make that decision to not just compile and collate information, but having engaged with whatever knowledge has been, accumulated in that field of research, or whatever publications there are, you should, if you have that desire and compulsion to take the road less traveled, your work will be refreshing, new, if not path-breaking. So here I am today making a case for keeping alive intuition, keeping alive that impulsive nature, right, in you, and not being embarrassed about having an obsession or a mania, and what if you seemed erratic, disorganized? Well, and how do you handle all those sparks of inspiration? So when it comes to method, I would not argue so much that method is finding a theoretical framework. I would also say that apart from theory and theoretical framework, method is your way of going about. Yes, way of going about it. So how do you organize? Okay, so when Polonius says, observes Hamlet, and he says there is method to this madness, we can translate that for our purpose into how we handle our research interest, how we handle that, the obsession that we have, how we handle the mania that we have, how we handle the fire in the belly, the interest, the creative ideas. So at a practical level, so coming to look at it practically, we have to keep writing. I cannot emphasize that sufficiently. So as I said, your first engagement should be with the text. Text should be read. If you're working on literature, you read and reread and read the text. So read and write, read and write. So this theoretical framework it's just a lens. So when I say it's a lens, when you change the lens, it means you see things differently. So we have to remember that the theoretical framework is not necessarily the gospel truth, but a lens. And then the theoretical framework helps us to we think it helps us to organize our ideas. But if you're looking at it only from that perspective, your theoretical framework will be a bucket or a basket in which you collect ideas. Your thesis would be a collection of all that has been said on the subject. So all that has been said on the subject is scholarship. It is not a thesis. It is not a finding. All right. Then what is theorizing? Theorizing is not necessarily theorizing based on theories of theorists, but you can even theorize on your own. There is one contention that I have always had with the question paper in when it comes to literary theory. There are there are sometimes the student is asked to do an analysis of a text and apply the theories that you have learned. I won't say that is entirely incorrect, but this, when you try to visualize the text being framed within a theory would mean being so restrictive. And we know that um, theories, as M.H. Abrams says in this orientation to literary theories, we have to read them and get acquainted with them and absorb the ideas that are in them. And if they connect, they connect, and if they don't, they don't. That's it. So we don't apply theory, and we don't make any text fit into a theory. A text may be approached from different theoretical points of view also. So kindly free the text. Let us release the text from any stranglehold that we might think we have to bring to bear upon that, only because we want to appear scholarly or well informed. But if all the theory, if all the ideas would enhance, would um, make it more profound, if viewing through that lens makes that reading more profound, so be it. And I would also say that writing, methodology also involves method, and method is writing. A researcher should keep writing all the time. So when writing is a practice, when writing is like a yoga, all right, when writing is an exercise, there is a lot of flab, in the work, in that can be cut down. So with repeated writing, so sometimes the writing is very obtuse, and there's lack of focus. And then when you reread that, you cut down a lot of things, and you get streamlined. Sometimes there's digression, and the act of writing itself calls for clarity of thought. We have to plan, we have to translate thought to word, and the word has to come on the paper. And after writing, we review what we write. And this process I call as moving from draft to craft. So, research writing, moving from draft to craft takes a long time, many months, might be more than a year also. And writing, when the act of writing also helps us to identify gaps. And I'm at this moment, I'd like to remember my teachers with gratitude, because we were always told to write an abstract and then write the paper. Because in writing an abstract, we have to put your ideas into a paragraph, and you know that every paragraph should have a topic sentence. One idea in one paragraph, uh, the TEAL approach. T, topic sentence; E, for evidence; E, for explanation; L, for linkers. Linkers, where you'll have phrases and expressions which link ideas. So this is, of course, comes in the realm of academic writing. So, but when you have that skill in academic writing and you craft that, the first act is crafting an abstract. If you are writing a research paper, if you're writing a thesis, it's a research proposal. So don't get into your research without writing a research proposal. Don't get into writing a paper without writing an abstract. So the title, then the title of the thesis also will undergo several changes. So you will begin with a proposed title, and then there will be shifts. There will be changes in your understanding, and that will get fine-tuned by and by. It might change also considerably. So I'd like to close with sharing what I learned when I was a research scholar at the University of New South Wales, Sydney. This was the template that was given to us, and is given to every postgraduate student and research scholar as soon as they enroll. So when you answer these questions, simple questions, what is your research about? Why is it important? So, what is your research about? Even making that sentence, my research is about this. You start explaining what is that field, and then you go to the next question. Why is it important? And when you have to answer what is your research about, the rationale, okay? So the rationale involves your explanation of your research problem, okay? What is your research question? What is your research problem? And then further on, it goes on to what is original about your work. If you have a question, have you investigated to see whether that question has been answered before? All right. What is original about your argument? And having established what is original about your argument, what are the questions you will investigate? And I would like to, admit with gratitude that these questions, once I started, when I answered these questions and what methodology, all these questions, I was able to quickly, almost the immediately after this exercise, I was able to draft my chapter outlines. Okay, so method matters. Yes, I agree, method matters. But let us not douse the madness within us by being too conscious of method. Method will find us. Let's keep the madness alive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was a perfect session, and we gained a lot of inputs and a lot of insights have been learned. I hope the audience would have enjoyed and they learned so many, broad areas about research. Now I call upon Dr. Blessy for the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I think that you might have enjoyed a wonderful session from Dr. Maria Preeti ma'am. So now it's time to deliver word of thanks. Firstly, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speaker and resource person, Dr. Maria Preeti Srinivasan, Associate Professor and Head, Department of English, Queen Mary's College, Chennai, for her wonderful expertise about the importance of hypothesis, research problems, and the different dimensions of research methods in madness. Your presentations and discussions on the topic, Methods in Madness, the making of path-breaking research, helps to contemplate the deeper insights into the novel area of research. Thank you very much, ma'am. I thank our management for giving the opportunity to organize this event. Then I thank our Dean Sir, VP Sir, and HOD Ma'am for their support and motivation to organize the event. I also thank the organizing committee and the department faculty members who have worked tirelessly. I would also like to thank our participants for their enthusiastic engagement and participation. Thank you all once again for your valuable contributions today. Have a fabulous evening, and I look forward to see you all back here for the fifth day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Blessy, ma'am. Thank you, audience, for your wonderful participation. Your presence means to us. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We're so privileged for having you. It was a good session, good time, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the feedback has